Smoke curled from beneath Celeste Marlowe's white glove. Only Evelyn Hart seemed to notice. She stood alone at the foot of the obsidian dais, while representatives from all 7 packs filled Ironcrest's great hall. Above her, Alpha King Adrien Vale held Celeste's gloved hand, as if presenting a treasured bride, instead of the woman who had shared his bed behind his mate's back. The moonstone Luna ring was hidden beneath that glove. Evelyn had worn it for 9 years. Now it was burning the woman Adrien had chosen to replace her. "My decision is final," Adrien declared. His alpha voice rolled across the hall, forcing weaker wolves to lower their eyes. Evelyn remained upright. Her palms were cold, but her spine did not bend. Celeste rested one hand protectively over her stomach. "The kingdom requires a legitimate heir," Adrien continued. "Lady Celeste carries my child." A murmur spread through the gathered packs. Evelyn felt the mate bond tighten around her ribs. Adrien's betrayal moved through it like a rusted blade, but she gave the crowd no tears. Counselor Gideon Voss stepped forward carrying a black medical file sealed with the royal crest. "The royal healers have confirmed that Luna Evelyn is incapable of bearing another child," he announced. Her previous loss caused permanent damage. For one terrible moment, Evelyn heard nothing. 2 years ago, she had awakened in a blood-soaked bed with Adrien's arms around her. He had promised that their child's death would remain sacred between them. Now he had turned that grave into evidence against her. Adrien's jaw tightened. Some part of him knew what he had done. Yet hundreds of wolves were watching, and pride would not allow him to retreat. Voss opened the file. Evelyn's gaze settled on the final page. The royal seal had been pressed upside down. Not a mistake, a warning. Someone within the council had prepared this humiliation before Adrien ever announced his decision. "Remove the ring," Adrien ordered. Celeste's smile trembled as she pulled off her glove. Angry red burns circled her finger beneath the moonstone ring. Adrien saw them. His eyes narrowed for half a second. Then he looked away. That choice hurt Evelyn more than the affair. Celeste approached with calculated hesitation. "I never wanted to cause you pain." "No," Evelyn said quietly. "You only wanted everything the pain could buy you." Celeste stopped. A few wolves inhaled sharply. Adrien descended 1 step from the dais. "Enough. You will surrender the Luna crest and kneel before the future mother of Emberfall's heir." The mate bond screamed inside Evelyn. Her wolf, Lyra, clawed against the rejection. Adrien expected her knees to buckle. He expected grief to bring her back under his control. Instead, Evelyn looked directly at him. "Will you authorize an independent examination of that medical file?" Voss stiffened. Celeste's burned hand curled against her dress. Adrien hesitated. Evelyn saw the doubt in his eyes. He had noticed the ring. He had noticed the inverted seal. He knew she had managed Emberfall's laws and records long enough to recognize fraud. But admitting doubt would weaken him before the 7 alphas. "The matter has been investigated," he said. It was not an answer. It was a choice. Evelyn slowly removed the royal Luna crest from her collar and placed it on the ceremonial table. Then she reached for the silver oath dagger. Adrien's expression changed. "Evelyn," for the first time that night, uncertainty entered his voice. She drew the blade across her palm. Blood struck the crown covenant. The ancient parchment absorbed it instantly. Blue fire raced through the written vows. Counselor Voss stumbled backward. "Stop her!" No guard moved. Under the uncrowned moon statute, interference carried a sentence of exile. Evelyn pressed her bleeding hand flat against the covenant. "I, Evelyn Hart, bonded Luna of Emberfall, withdraw the crown oath given freely 9 years ago." The chandeliers shook. A crack split the marble beneath Adrien's throne. "I freeze my Luna seal, suspend every treaty bearing my blood, and invoke moon trial before the next full moon." The symbols carved into the obsidian throne went dark one by one. Adrien reached for the throne as his alpha aura suddenly faltered. Across the hall, wolves lifted their heads, freed for one breath from the pressure of his command. Evelyn faced the man she had loved. "You chose your Luna," she said. "Now prove you can remain king without mine." She turned and walked toward the doors. No one ordered her to stop. Behind her, the moonstone ring cracked against Celeste's finger. As the doors closed, Elder Voss leaned toward Adrien's pale face. "You have 30 days, he whispered, "before every pack in Emberfall decides whether that crown still belongs to you. By dawn, Adrien would still wear the crown, but every wolf in Emberfall had felt it stop belonging to him. My dear friend, perhaps today has been easy for you. Perhaps it has not. Either way, I am grateful that you found your way here. Sometimes a story cannot solve our problems, but it can give us a quiet place to rest for a little while. That is what we hope these stories can become for you. If this chapter has brought you even a few peaceful minutes, please consider subscribing or leaving a like. You may also tell us how your day has been. We may not be able to answer every comment, but we read them with care. Thank you for spending this moment with us. Now, let us return to our heroine. She may be wounded, but she is far from defeated. Evelyn entered the royal chambers without turning on the lights. Moonlight spilled across the bed she had shared with Adrien for 9 years. His scent still clung to the sheets, cedar, rain, and the bitter trace of the woman he had chosen over her. The mate bond pulsed beneath Evelyn's ribs. She ignored it. Opening the oldest chest in the wardrobe, she removed 2 pairs of trousers, 3 shirts, a wool coat, and the leather boots she had worn before becoming Luna. She left behind the ceremonial gowns, the diamonds, and every gift Adrien had ever placed around her throat. Those things belonged to the woman who had believed love made them sacred. Evelyn no longer did. She crossed to the locked cabinet beside the fireplace and collected her identification papers, personal medical records, and copies of the trade agreements she had negotiated. The kingdom might erase her name from the throne, but it would not erase her work. Her hand paused over a silver pendant resting inside a velvet box. A pale moonstone was set at its center. It had belonged to her mother. Evelyn fastened it around her neck just as the chamber door opened. Adrien stood in the doorway. His face was composed, but the alpha aura around him flickered unevenly. The withdrawn crown oath had weakened something inside him, and he hated that Evelyn could see it. You made your point, he said. Put everything back. Evelyn folded her coat into the bag. This is not a performance. You cannot simply leave Ironcrest. You removed my title before 7 packs. I removed you as Luna. You are still my mate. The words struck the damaged bond, sending pain across Evelyn's chest. Her fingers tightened around the bag, but she did not allow him to see her flinch. Adrien stepped closer. The council will decide where you remain until the moon trial. You will stay in the eastern residence, under guard. A gilded cell. Protection. From whom? His silence answered her. From the council. From Celeste. Perhaps even from him. Adrien's eyes dropped to the empty jewelry cases. For the first time, the certainty in his expression cracked. You will come back before morning, he said. When your anger passes. Evelyn lifted the bag onto her shoulder. I am not leaving because I am angry. Then why? Because you saw the ring burning her. You saw the seal was wrong. You knew I was asking for an investigation, and you chose humiliation instead. Adrien's jaw hardened. I made a decision for the kingdom. You made a decision for your pride. His alpha command entered his voice. You will remain here. The pressure rolled across the room, strong enough to rattle the glass doors. Evelyn felt it strike her bones. Then it dissolved. Under the uncrowned moon statute, Adrien's command no longer held authority over her movement. His eyes widened. Evelyn walked past him. At the bottom of the private stairwell, a black SUV waited beside the servants' entrance. Nora Bennett sat behind the wheel, her gray-streaked hair pinned neatly beneath a dark hat. She unlocked the passenger door. Are you certain? Evelyn climbed inside. Drive. The gates opened without ceremony. Adrien watched from the royal balcony as the vehicle disappeared into the forest. He told himself Evelyn would stop at the border. She understood what distance did to a damaged mate bond. She knew the pain could kill. The SUV crossed beneath the lightning-scarred oak, marking the edge of Ironcrest territory. Something tore inside Evelyn. Her back slammed against the seat. The mate bond stretched between her and Adrien like burning wire being dragged through her ribs. Her vision whitened. Blood warmed her upper lip. Nora reached for the brake. Do not stop, Evelyn gasped. You're bleeding. Keep driving. At the palace, Adrien staggered against the balcony rail. Pain drove through his sternum so violently that his wolf roared inside him. Celeste called his name from the doorway, but he could only stare toward the dark road. Evelyn had crossed the border. She had truly left. 3 hours later, Nora guided Evelyn into a narrow townhouse in the neutral district. Dr. Mara Quinn waited inside beside a table covered with medical equipment. Mara's expression tightened when she saw the blood on Evelyn's face. "I did not sign the infertility report," she said before Evelyn could speak. The room became still. Mara opened Evelyn's old medical file and placed it beside the document read in the Great Hall. The signatures were similar, but the pressure marks were wrong. "A forgery," Nora said, "and not the only one." Mara drew Evelyn's blood, then examined the bottle of supplements Evelyn had carried from the palace. Minutes later, the healer stared at the test strip in silence. A dark blue line appeared beside an unfamiliar crescent symbol. "What does that mean?" Evelyn asked. Mara looked from the blood sample to the moonstone pendant at Evelyn's throat. "It means they did not merely falsify your file." Her voice dropped. "Someone has been medicating you for almost 2 years." The neutral district woke beneath a gray morning sky. Human traffic moved through the narrow streets without sensing the wounded mate bond wrapped around Evelyn's ribs. To them, she was only a pale woman in a dark coat, standing behind the curtains of Nora Bennett's townhouse. To Evelyn, every passing hour felt like a wire being tightened inside her chest. Dr. Mara Quinn had spent the night testing the supplements taken from the royal chambers. 3 glass vials now stood on the kitchen table beside Evelyn's medical file. "Moonbane suppressant," Mara said. "Small doses, carefully measured." Nora folded her arms. "What does it do?" "It weakens a wolf's healing response, disrupts fertility. In prolonged exposure, it can cause pregnancy loss." Evelyn's fingers closed around the moonstone pendant at her throat. 2 years earlier, she had blamed her own body for failing to protect her child. Adrien had held her while she bled and promised it was no one's fault. Now the truth sat inside a glass vial. "Can you prove who administered it?" Evelyn asked. "Not yet." "Then we do not accuse anyone." Mara stared at her. "Evelyn, someone may have killed your child. And if we move before we have proof, the council will call this the grief of a rejected woman." Her voice did not break, but Nora saw the pressure of Evelyn's thumb against the moonstone. She was holding it hard enough to leave an imprint. A knock sounded at the front door. Not loud. 3 measured strikes. Nora's hand moved beneath her jacket toward the silver pistol she carried for wolf negotiations. "No one knows this address." A deep voice came through the door. Evelyn Hart invoked the uncrowned moon statute. Under the neutral crown accord, she is entitled to a sovereign witness. Evelyn recognized the voice from diplomatic chambers and border councils. "Rowan Blackthorn," she said. Nora opened the door but did not lower her weapon. The King of Nightcrest stood on the rain-darkened steps in a black coat, with no crown and no visible guard. He was taller than Evelyn remembered, broad through the shoulders, with silver beginning at his temples. His amber eyes moved once across the room, noting Mara, the medical equipment, and the blood-stained cloth beside Evelyn's chair. "I came alone," Rowan said. "That would be more convincing if I believed you traveled without protection," Nora replied. A faint smile touched his mouth. "My guards are across the street." Evelyn stepped into view. "What do you want?" "Nothing you are not willing to give." Rowan entered only after she moved aside. From his coat, he removed a signed agreement and placed it on the table. It granted Evelyn residence within Nightcrest, control over her own movements, independent legal counsel, and protection from Emberfall warrants until the Moon trial. No mating clause, no political loyalty oath, no demand for Ironcrest military intelligence. Evelyn read every line. "In exchange?" she asked. "Nightcrest has a supply crisis. Grain is vanishing between our southern storehouses and the mountain settlements. My council believes it is theft. I believe it is organized sabotage. You want me to audit your kingdom. I want the woman who rebuilt Emberfall's winter reserves to tell me why my people are being starved." Evelyn looked up sharply. Adrien had accepted public credit for that system. Few rulers knew she had designed it. Rowan met her gaze. 5 years ago, you redirected 3 Ironcrest convoys during the Western Blight. Nightcrest survived because of it. That agreement benefited both kingdoms. Adrien said it was his idea. Evelyn's expression remained still. Rowan did not need her answer. "You may refuse," he said. "The protection remains valid until sunset. After that, Councillor Voss will argue that this district cannot legally shelter a former royal Luna accused of destabilizing the crown." Nora examined the agreement. The terms are clean. Clean terms can still hide dirty intentions, Evelyn said. Rowan inclined his head. Then search for them. Nightcrest Citadel stood 4 hours west, carved into a mountain above a dark pine valley. Evelyn expected to be taken to a guest suite. Instead, Rowan led her into the strategy room. Maps covered the stone walls. Ledgers were stacked across a long oak table. 6 Nightcrest commanders waited inside, none pleased to see her. Rowan placed the supply records before Evelyn. You have 48 hours. One commander scoffed. She was Emberfall's Luna yesterday, and today she is the only person in this room who has prevented a 7-pack famine, Rowan said. He gave Evelyn the seat at the center of the table and stepped back. Not above her, not in front of her. Evelyn opened the first ledger. Within 20 minutes, she found 3 storage facilities, reporting the same grain shipment under different identification numbers. The food is not missing, she said. Someone is selling it twice. Silence fell. Rowan's eyes sharpened. Evelyn compared the transport dates with the patrol schedules. Every disappearance occurred on nights when border guards had been reassigned by sealed command. The seal belonged to Rowan's quartermaster, but the ink was manufactured in Emberfall. Hours later, after the commanders had left to secure the warehouses, Rowan returned carrying an old envelope sealed with silver wax. I knew your mother, he said. Evelyn went still. Helena Hart sent this to me before she died. She ordered me not to open it unless the Luna ring rejected another woman. The symbol pressed into the wax matched the crescent mark in Evelyn's blood test. She did not reach for it. Have the seal examined by Nora. Rowan placed the letter on the table without offense. When Nora lifted the first layer of wax, hidden words appeared beneath it. Evelyn read them twice. To my daughter, the message began. The last lawful keeper of the Emberfall crown. The first lie in Nightcrest's supply records was hidden in a shipment of winter wheat. Evelyn found the second inside a medical convoy. By sunrise, she had covered Rowan Blackthorn's strategy table with ledgers, patrol schedules, and transport maps. Red marks connected 3 southern storehouses to a forgotten road through the Ashwood Valley. The Nightcrest commanders gathered around her in uneasy silence. Commander Rafe Calder, a scarred wolf with little patience for outsiders, tapped one of the ledgers. You are accusing our quartermaster of stealing enough grain to feed 2,000 wolves. I am accusing him of reporting the same shipment 3 times, Evelyn replied. The evidence will decide whether it was theft. Rafe's mouth tightened. And how do you intend to obtain that evidence? Evelyn moved a black marker across the map. We give him another shipment. A few commanders exchanged looks. Rowan stood near the window, watching her rather than the map. A trap, he said. A controlled convoy, Evelyn corrected. The wagons will appear to carry medicine and preserved meat. If the quartermaster is working with outsiders, he cannot ignore it. Rafe folded his arms. And when his men attack, they will not attack. You sound certain. They believe the patrols will be reassigned. Evelyn slid a forged scheduling form across the table. We will allow them to intercept this order. They will think the Eastern Pass is unguarded. Rowan examined the document. You copied my command seal. No. I copied the counterfeit version used on the previous orders. For the first time, Rafe looked impressed. The convoy departed shortly before dusk. 4 covered wagons moved toward Ashwood Valley under a thin escort. Evelyn rode in the second wagon with a crossbow beneath her cloak and the supply ledger secured inside her coat. Rowan had objected only once. You can direct this from the Citadel, and if the quartermaster changes the route, your soldiers will not know which discrepancy matters. You are not one of my soldiers. No, she said. Which is why I decide where I go. Rowan studied her for a moment, then ordered 12 hidden riders to follow at a distance. He did not command her to remain behind. That difference unsettled Evelyn more than an argument would have. The convoy reached the Ashwood Fork after midnight. No enemy appeared. Rafe shifted in his saddle. Your quartermaster may have recognized the trap. Evelyn looked toward the trees. The night was too still. Stop the wagons. A second later, the lead horses screamed. The road collapsed beneath them. Men emerged from both sides of the valley, not attacking the convoy but racing toward the rear wagon. They knew exactly which vehicle supposedly carried the medicine. Evelyn had placed the forged cargo manifest in the wrong file deliberately. Only one person had received that version. Quartermaster Bell, she said. A broad man in nightcrest armor stepped from the trees. His face changed when he saw Evelyn standing beside the wagon. "You were supposed to remain at the Citadel. That is what your informant told you." Bell raised a silver pistol. Rowan moved from the darkness before he could fire. He struck Bell's wrist, sending the weapon into the mud. Nightcrest riders surrounded the smugglers as Rafe cut off the retreat route. The operation should have ended there. Then one of the frightened horses broke free. The rear wagon tipped toward the ravine, dragging 2 young guards with it. Evelyn seized the reins, braced both boots against a wheel, and shouted for the men to cut the harness. Rowan reached her first. Together, they held the wagon long enough for Rafe to free the trapped guards. Only after the vehicle settled did Evelyn realize her injured palm had reopened. Blood ran between her fingers. Rowan's gaze dropped to it. "You nearly went over the edge. So did your medicine. The crates are filled with stones." The smugglers did not know that. His expression darkened, but he said nothing more. By morning, Bell had confessed. For 6 months, he had diverted food and medicine to merchants working through Emberfall territory. The shortages had been created deliberately to force Nightcrest into an unfavorable trade agreement. Rowan called his council together before noon. Evelyn expected to remain near the wall as an outside advisor. Instead, he indicated the high-backed chair beside his. The crescent symbol carved into it marked the seat of Nightcrest's future Luna. Evelyn stopped. "I will not sit there." A murmur moved through the room. Rowan looked at the symbol, then at her. "Why?" "Because I did not leave one throne to be placed beside another." The council waited for his anger. It never came. Rowan summoned a servant. "Remove the chair." Within minutes, it was replaced by a plain oak seat bearing no royal mark. Rowan faced the gathered commanders. "Evelyn Hart prevented a famine and exposed treason inside my own command. From this day forward, she will serve as Chancellor of Civil Strategy for as long as she chooses. Not Luna, not refugee, not discarded mate. Chancellor." Evelyn sat down. For the first time in 9 years, authority had been placed in her hands without a man claiming ownership of it. Rafe entered carrying a sealed document recovered from Bell's coat. The smugglers had this. He placed it before Rowan. The order authorized the destruction of Nightcrest's winter reserves. At the bottom was the unmistakable crest of Ironcrest, Adrien's royal seal. By the 7th day without Evelyn, Emberfall's failures could no longer be hidden behind ceremony. The first warning came from the Eastern Healer Network. 3 clinics reported that their winter medicine had not arrived. The second came from Frostpine Pack, whose alpha refused to release soldiers until the Crown clarified whether Adrien's authority remained valid without the Luna's oath. The third warning arrived at dawn. Ironcrest's largest grain warehouse was almost empty. Adrien stood in the royal strategy room, staring at the open ledger while 6 officials argued around him. "This cannot be accurate," he said. The chief steward lowered his eyes. "The reserve codes were changed last winter. Then retrieve the new codes. The Luna maintained them personally." Adrien's head lifted. Someone else must have access. No one answered. He turned to the trade minister. "Contact the southern merchants. They suspended every agreement carrying Evelyn's blood seal. Then use mine. They are refusing, Your Majesty. Under the Moon Trial Statute, your signature cannot replace a frozen Luna seal on civilian contracts." The room seemed to shrink around him. For 9 years, Adrien had believed the kingdom worked because he commanded it. Armies moved when he spoke. Alphas bowed when he entered. Counselors waited for his approval. But the grain, medicine, orphan funds, border shelters, and winter routes had never moved through his hands. They had moved through Evelyn's. Adrien closed the ledger. "Find another solution." The officials looked at one another. That had always been Evelyn's solution. Across the palace, Celeste stood before a mirror while servants fastened pearls into her hair. She had demanded a private Luna recognition ceremony to silence the growing rumors that the Moonstone ring had rejected her. The burn beneath the ring had spread around her finger in a dark red circle. She covered it with powder. When Adrien entered, she immediately lowered her hand. "You missed the rehearsal," she said. "There are food shortages in 3 packs. Celeste's mouth tightened. "Today is important to me. Children are going without medicine. And what do you expect me to do?" I was never given access to Evelyn's accounts. Adrien stared at her. Evelyn would already have known which emergency fund to open. which merchant could be pressured, and which pack had enough surplus to survive a temporary transfer. Celeste noticed the comparison in his eyes. "I am not her," she said coldly. "No," Adrien replied. "You are not." The words escaped before he could soften them. Celeste's face changed. Then she pressed both hands over her stomach and drew a careful breath. "Stress is dangerous for your heir." Guilt replaced Adrien's irritation. He escorted her into the smaller ceremonial hall, where selected nobles and council members waited. Celeste approached the Luna altar and raised her ringed hand. The moonstone ring turned black. A hiss escaped her lips. Smoke rose between her fingers. She quickly closed her fist, but the scent of burned flesh had already reached every wolf in the room. Councillor Gideon Voss stepped forward. "The ring is reacting to the absence of the crown oath," he announced. "Once Evelyn is condemned at the moon trial, it will accept the rightful Luna." Adrien looked at the ring. He remembered the burns beneath Celeste's glove in the great hall. He had seen them and chosen not to ask why. "Remove it," he ordered. Celeste stared at him. No, that was not a request. Her eyes filled with tears, but the fear behind them was not fragile. It was calculating. "I will not let Evelyn steal this from me too." Adrien left before the ceremony ended. In the Royal Archive, Beta Lucas Reed placed 2 medical files beneath a white examination lamp. The doctor named on Celeste's pregnancy certificate was Dr. Samuel Crane. Lucas searched the employment registry. His body went cold. Dr. Crane had died 2 years earlier. The date of death appeared directly beneath his name. Lucas checked the signature again, then opened the palace access records. Celeste had entered the medical archive 3 nights before Adrien announced her pregnancy. She had not entered alone. Councillor Voss's authorization code had opened the door. Lucas copied the records onto a secure drive and slipped it inside his coat. As he approached the council chamber, voices stopped him before he reached the door. Celeste was inside. "We are running out of time," she whispered. Voss answered with quiet impatience. "Adrien still believes the child exists. He is beginning to question me." "Then keep him frightened. Remind him that without an heir, the 7 packs will tear his kingdom apart. And Evelyn? The arrest order will bring her back." Lucas moved closer to the narrow opening between the doors. Celeste's voice lost every trace of softness. "We only need Adrien on the throne until the eclipse." A chair scraped against stone. "After that," she said, "the crown will belong to us." The entrance to Moon Court had been buried beneath 3 centuries of deliberate silence. Rowan led Evelyn through a narrow pass north of Nightcrest, where black pines crowded against the mountain and snow covered the broken foundations of an abandoned temple. Nora and Dr. Mara followed behind them, carrying sealed evidence cases and enough silver ammunition to discourage any council patrol foolish enough to follow. "There is nothing here," Nora said, studying the collapsed stone arch. "There is," Rowan replied. "It simply does not open for me." At the base of the ruins stood a wall carved with a faded crescent moon. No lock, hinge, or handle interrupted the stone. Evelyn stepped closer. The moonstone pendant at her throat had grown warm. She removed it and pressed the stone into a shallow hollow at the center of the crescent. Nothing happened. Then the scar across her palm reopened. 1 drop of blood touched the pendant. The mountain answered. Ancient symbols ignited beneath the snow, spreading outward in lines of blue fire. The stone wall divided down the middle with a sound like distant thunder. Cold air poured from the darkness beyond it. Rowan looked at Evelyn, but he did not step through first. "This belongs to you," he said. Evelyn entered alone. The hidden archive had survived untouched beneath the mountain. Shelves of silver-bound records lined the walls. At the center of the chamber stood a stone pedestal, supporting a document protected beneath crystal, the original Crown Covenant. Evelyn approached slowly. The words were written in 2 columns. One carried the mark of the first Alpha King. The other bore the crescent seal, now glowing against her mother's pendant. Nora broke the silence. "The histories in Emberfall mention only one sovereign." "They were rewritten," Evelyn said. Mara opened a sealed genealogy register. Page after page documented women of the Moon Court line who had served not as royal wives, but as equal rulers. The last recorded name was Helena Mooncourt, Evelyn's mother. A letter rested beneath the register. Evelyn recognized the handwriting immediately. She read it without sitting down. Helena had changed their name to Hart after the council ordered the execution of every living Mooncourt heir. She had hidden Evelyn among ordinary wolves and allowed the royal court to believe the bloodline had ended. The letter contained no apology, only a warning. The council would someday seek a compliant Luna, Helena had written, because a woman who understood the covenant could remove the power they controlled. Evelyn folded the letter carefully. "They knew who I was," she said. "Voss may have suspected," Rowan replied. "But if he had proof, you would not have survived childhood." Mara opened her medical case. "We need proof now." She drew Evelyn's blood and compared it with samples preserved inside the archive. The old testing device hummed as crescent symbols appeared across its glass surface. The result was unmistakable. Direct Mooncourt descent. Nora photographed every page before sealing copies in separate evidence bags. Mara then tested the strands of hair taken from Evelyn's brush and the supplements removed from her royal chambers. The same toxin appeared in both. Moonbane suppressant. "Nearly 2 years of exposure," Mara said. "The dose increased before your miscarriage." Evelyn's breathing stopped. The chamber seemed to tilt beneath her feet. For 2 years, she had carried the belief that her body had betrayed her child. Adrien had held her while she apologized for failing him. Someone had placed poison in her hands and watched her swallow it. Rowan moved 1 step toward her, then stopped. He did not touch her without permission. Evelyn pressed both palms against the stone pedestal. "Make 3 copies of every result," she said. "1 stays with Nora, 1 remains in Nightcrest. The 3rd goes to an independent healer in the neutral territory." Mara's eyes filled with grief. "You do not have to be strong every second." "I am not being strong." Evelyn looked at the crown covenant beneath the crystal. "I am making certain they cannot bury another truth." Mara hesitated. "There is another test I need to repeat." She prepared a smaller scanner and passed it slowly over Evelyn's abdomen. At first, only static filled the room. Then came a faint, rapid sound. A heartbeat. Evelyn stared at the monitor. Mara checked the reading twice. "You are approximately 8 weeks pregnant." The words struck more deeply than any alpha command. The child had been conceived before Adrien chose Celeste, before the false infertility report, before Evelyn walked away. The real heir had been growing inside her while Adrien publicly replaced her with a woman carrying nothing but a lie. Evelyn placed a trembling hand over her stomach. Fear arrived before joy. "If the council learns this, they will claim the baby. Nightcrest will protect you," Rowan said. She turned toward him. "My child is not a treaty." "No," he replied, "and not a crown asset. Not while I draw breath." He ordered nothing, claimed nothing. That made Evelyn believe him more than any oath could have. When they returned to Nightcrest that evening, a black carriage waited inside the gates. A council messenger stood beside it holding a parchment sealed with 7 claws. The notice summoned Evelyn to Ironcrest for moon trial. Nora broke the seal and read the final clause aloud. Her face hardened. "Any unborn child carrying Vale royal blood," she said, "is hereby placed under the legal guardianship of the Emberfall crown." Evelyn covered her stomach. The council did not know about the baby yet, which meant someone inside Mooncourt had already told them. Rain struck the stained glass windows of the neutral chapel as Lucas Reed stepped through the side entrance. Dr. Mara Quinn waited beside the unlit altar, her hood pulled low. She had chosen sacred ground because no alpha could legally issue a command there without violating the neutral faith accord. Lucas locked the door behind him. "If Adrien learns I came here, he will know soon enough," Mara said. "Truth does not remain quiet once it has witnesses." Lucas removed a secure drive from inside his coat and placed it on the altar. It contained Celeste's conversation with Counselor Voss. They admitted, "Adrien is only useful until the eclipse." Mara inserted the drive into a small recorder. Celeste's voice filled the empty chapel. "We only need Adrien on the throne until the eclipse. After that, the crown will belong to us." Lucas closed his eyes. He had served Adrien since they were boys. He had fought beside him, buried soldiers beside him, and defended his worst decisions because loyalty had once seemed simpler than judgment. Then Evelyn had stood alone in the great hall, while every man sworn to protect the kingdom remained silent. "I should have stopped the ceremony," Lucas said. Mara looked at him. "You could not have stopped Adrien. I could have stood beside her. That failure would follow him longer than any punishment." Mara opened her medical case and removed a handwritten pharmacy ledger. Celeste collected Moonbane suppressant 12 times under false patient names. The quantities matched the poison found in Evelyn's supplements. Lucas studied the dates. The largest dose had been collected 4 days before Evelyn lost her child. His hand tightened around the ledger. I will testify. You may lose your rank. I should lose more than that. At Ironcrest, Celeste entered the royal vault shortly before midnight. She wore a dark cloak and carried the moonstone Luna ring inside a silver box. The burns around her finger had turned black. Every attempt to wear the ring now ended with smoke, blood, and whispers from servants. Counselor Voss waited near the crown display. You were seen coming here, he said. Then dismiss the guards who saw me. We cannot keep removing everyone who becomes suspicious. Celeste placed the ring on a stone table. Once the moon trial begins, this thing will expose me. She raised a ceremonial hammer. The first strike cracked the table. The ring remained untouched. The second strike sent a burst of blue light through the vault. Ancient words appeared across the moonstone. The crown follows the oath, not the alpha. Celeste recoiled. Neither she nor Voss noticed the small security lens above the eastern archway. The royal vault recorded every movement. Voss seized the hammer from her. Destroying it is impossible. We discredit Evelyn instead. How? We give the kingdom a reason to fear her. He removed a duplicate Luna seal from his pocket. By dawn, Adrien was lying on the floor of his private office. Pain tore through his stomach as royal guards forced the doors open. A shattered cup lay beside him, its remaining tea carrying the bitter scent of wolfsbane. Celeste dropped to her knees. Adrien. He pushed her hand away and struggled to breathe. Council healers arrived within minutes. So did Gideon Voss, carrying a purchase order for concentrated wolfsbane. The document bore Evelyn's frozen Luna seal. This was intercepted at the northern gate, Voss said. The poison was purchased by one of Nightcrest's merchants. Adrien read the order through blurred vision. Evelyn's name appeared beneath the seal. Celeste covered her mouth. She wants you dead. No, Lucas said from the doorway. Every face turned toward him. He approached the desk and examined the document. The Luna seal was frozen before Evelyn entered Nightcrest. Any order issued afterward would be invalid. Voss's expression hardened. Invalid does not mean impossible. It means someone copied it. Celeste began to cry. She withdrew the crown oath. She joined Rowan. How much more evidence do you need before you accept that she hates us? Adrien looked at the seal. He remembered Evelyn asking for one independent investigation. He remembered refusing because hundreds of wolves had been watching. Now the council watched him again. Prepare an arrest warrant, Voss said. If Evelyn enters Emberfall, the royal guard must take custody of her immediately. Lucas stepped closer. Adrien, investigate first. The Alpha King's hand shook from the poison. His kingdom was starving. The council questioned his strength. Nightcrest possessed evidence bearing his own seal, and Evelyn now stood beside his oldest rival. Fear spoke more loudly than reason. Adrien signed the warrant. The moment the pen left the page, Lucas pulled the poison order beneath the light. Look at the date. Adrien did. The document had been created 3 days earlier. At that exact hour, Evelyn had been addressing the Nightcrest Council before dozens of witnesses. The order could not have come from her. Adrien stared at his signature on the warrant. Once again, doubt had appeared before him. Once again, he had chosen accusation. A guard rushed into the office. Your Majesty, the western gates have opened. Adrien forced himself upright. A line of black vehicles entered the Ironcrest courtyard beneath Nightcrest banners. Human attorneys, neutral healers, and foreign witnesses stepped out under royal protection. Then Evelyn emerged from the first vehicle. She wore no lunacrest and carried no weapon. Rowan walked several steps behind her. Evelyn looked directly toward the palace as the royal guard surrounded her. She had returned to face Adrien's judgment and to take his crown. The royal guard closed around Evelyn before the courtyard gates finished swinging shut. Silver-tipped spears lowered toward her chest. Wolves lining the palace balconies leaned forward, waiting to see whether the discarded Luna would kneel, run, or call upon Rowan Blackthorn for protection. She did none of those things. Evelyn stepped away from the vehicle wearing a charcoal coat over a dark blue suit. No Ironcrest crest marked her collar. No Nightcrest symbol claimed her loyalty. A leather case hung from one hand, containing copies of the Crown Covenant, the medical reports, and every document the council had tried to erase. Rowan emerged behind her but remained several paces back. This was Evelyn's return. He would not turn it into his invasion. Captain Marcus Hale approached with the arrest warrant held open. Evelyn Hart, by order of Alpha King Adrien Vale, you are charged with conspiracy against the crown and attempted regicide. Nora Bennett stepped forward. Evelyn raised one hand, stopping her. I will answer. Her voice carried across the courtyard without an alpha command. I entered Emberfall under summons for moon trial. Article 9 of the Uncrowned Moon Statute grants immunity from arrest to the petitioner, her witnesses, and her legal representatives until judgment is delivered. Marcus's grip tightened on the warrant. The king's order supersedes civil protection. Not during moon trial. Evelyn opened the leather case and removed a copy of the law bearing the seals of all 7 founding pacts. Any officer who detains the petitioner forfeits his rank and may be charged with obstruction of sacred judgment. The guards looked toward the palace. Adrien stood behind the glass doors above them, pale from the poison but upright. For one long moment, no one moved. Then Marcus lowered his spear. The others followed. A murmur spread through the wolves watching from the balconies. Evelyn had left Ironcrest, stripped of rank. She had returned and forced the royal guard to stand down with nothing but the law Adrien had assumed she would never use against him. Inside the palace, Adrien waited in the private audience chamber. He had dismissed the council and ordered Celeste confined to the royal wing. For the first time since signing the arrest warrant, he was alone with the consequences of his own choices. The door opened. Evelyn entered without Rowan. Adrien's eyes went immediately to her face. She looked thinner, harder, and more distant. Then he noticed the way one hand briefly rested near her abdomen before falling to her side. Something in his wolf stirred. You came back, he said. For the trial? This can still be stopped. Evelyn placed the arrest warrant on his desk. You signed this before verifying the evidence. I was poisoned and frightened. His jaw tightened. My kingdom is collapsing. Nightcrest holds documents carrying my seal. The council did not make you humiliate me. The words ended every excuse. Adrien looked toward the rain-darkened windows. I was wrong. Evelyn had imagined hearing those words during sleepless nights in the neutral district. She had thought they might break something inside her. They did not. They arrived too late to repair what his choices had destroyed. I can restore your title, Adrien continued. You can return to the royal wing. I will remove Celeste and conduct a complete investigation. You still think this is about giving me my place back? It is your home. No. Evelyn's voice softened, which made it cut more deeply. A home is not a place where a woman must prove her innocence before the man who claims to love her decides she deserves basic respect. Adrien stepped around the desk. The damaged mate bond pulled between them, aching with everything neither could undo. I do love you. You loved the version of me who carried your kingdom without asking you to acknowledge the weight. His eyes flicked again toward her stomach. Is there something you are not telling me? Evelyn's hand remained still. There are many things you no longer have the right to ask. Adrien stopped, as if she had struck him. Outside the chamber, the council bell rang. The moon trial proceedings were beginning. Celeste was brought into the council chamber under guard. Her face remained composed, but a white glove covered her damaged hand. Councillor Voss ordered her to present the moonstone Luna ring. She removed it reluctantly. The blackened ring slipped from her fingers, struck the marble floor, and rolled across the chamber. It passed Adrien. It passed Rowan. It stopped against Evelyn's boot. No one breathed. Evelyn did not bend to retrieve it. Blood from the old oath wound had seeped through the bandage around her palm. A single drop fell onto the moonstone. Blue light filled the chamber. The ring lifted from the floor without being touched. Ancient words appeared across its surface in letters bright enough for every council member to read. The crown follows the oath, not the alpha. Celeste stumbled backward. Voss's face lost all color. Nora placed the original crown covenant upon the central table and broke the archive seal. The council clerk read the final provision aloud. If a lawful heir of Mooncourt survives, the Alpha King retains the crown only through that heir's voluntary recognition. Every wolf in the chamber turned toward Evelyn. Adrien stood beside the darkened throne, waiting for the woman he had discarded to decide whether he would remain king. The moon trial began beneath a throne that no longer recognized its king. Representatives of all 7 packs filled the great hall. Neutral healers stood beside Nightcrest witnesses, while royal guards lined the walls with their weapons lowered. Evelyn stood at the center of the chamber. Adrien sat upon the darkened obsidian throne. Celeste waited near the council table, her burned hand hidden beneath a glove. Counselor Gideon Voss rose first. Evelyn Hart conspired with a foreign king, sabotaged Emberfall's food reserves, and attempted to poison Alpha King Adrien Vale. He placed the forged purchase order before the council. The evidence bears her Luna seal. Evelyn did not look at Adrien. I request that all evidence be examined in chronological order. Voss's eyes narrowed. This is not your council chamber. No, Evelyn replied. It is a moon trial. Even a king cannot change its laws. The council clerk confirmed her right. Dr. Mara Quinn approached with 2 medical files. One was the report used to declare Evelyn infertile. The second came from the Royal Healer Archive. The signature on the first report is not mine, Mara said. The seal was pressed upside down, and the physician named on Celeste Marlowe's pregnancy certificate died 2 years before he supposedly examined her. A ripple of shock moved through the hall. Celeste's face remained still. Mara placed 12 pharmacy records on the table. These show repeated withdrawals of Moonbane suppressant under false names. The substance was found in Evelyn's supplements and hair samples. Long-term exposure can damage fertility and cause pregnancy loss. Adrien's fingers tightened around the throne. Mara looked directly at him. The largest dose was collected 4 days before Evelyn lost her child. The mate bond convulsed. Adrien remembered Evelyn bleeding in his arms, apologizing because she believed her body had failed them. He had comforted her while the person responsible continued walking freely through his palace. Lucas Reed stepped forward. I recovered this recording from the council chamber. Celeste's voice filled the great hall. We only need Adrien on the throne until the eclipse. After that, the crown will belong to us. Voss surged to his feet. That recording has been altered. Lucas placed Royal Vault footage on the display screen. Celeste appeared holding a ceremonial hammer above the moonstone ring. Voss stood beside her with a duplicate Luna seal. No one spoke when the footage ended. Nora Bennett presented the transport records next. They proved that the order used to accuse Evelyn had been created while she was addressing the Nightcrest Council before dozens of witnesses. Evelyn placed the original Crown Covenant beside the forged document. The seal is mine, she said. The authority is not. The real Luna seal contained a narrow break through the crescent, created when Evelyn withdrew the crown oath. The forged mark had no break. Celeste backed away from the table. Voss arranged everything. The counselor turned on her. You came to me. You wanted the Luna title. You wanted revenge against the Vale family. My father died because of them. Your father died because he sold military routes to rogues. He was made a sacrifice so Adrien could look strong. Celeste tore off her glove. The skin around her finger was blackened where the ring had rejected her. I did what was necessary. I gave Adrien what he wanted, a weak woman who admired him. Adrien rose from the throne. You poisoned Evelyn. Celeste laughed bitterly. I placed the medicine in her supplements. I falsified the pregnancy. But I did not force you to choose me. Her gaze moved between Adrien and Evelyn. You saw the ring burn me. You saw the seal was wrong. She asked you to investigate, and you humiliated her instead. The truth struck harder because it came from Celeste. Royal guards seized Voss when he attempted to reach the side doors. Celeste did not resist as silver restraints closed around her wrists. The council clerk turned toward Adrien. Your Majesty may invoke Alpha Command to suspend these proceedings. Adrien looked at the 7-pack leaders. They were waiting to learn whether he would silence the truth again. Power gathered in his chest. Then he released it. No, he descended from the throne. I betrayed my mate. I ignored evidence because admitting doubt would have made me appear weak. I feared Evelyn's influence, even while I depended upon her to hold this kingdom together. His voice roughened. I signed an arrest warrant without an investigation. I chose a woman I believed I could control over the woman who had always stood as my equal. Adrien removed the royal seal from his hand. He crossed the hall and placed it before Evelyn. I was deceived, he said, but the choices were mine. The council asked the final question. Evelyn Hart, heir of Mooncourt, do you voluntarily recognize Adrien Vale as Alpha King? Adrien sank to one knee. He did not ask for love. He did not ask for mercy. Evelyn drew the silver oath dagger. I recognize the man he could have been, she said, but I will no longer sacrifice myself for the king he chose to become. She cut through the severance parchment. The mate bonds snapped. Pain drove Adrien to both hands. Evelyn's knees nearly failed, but she remained standing as 9 years of love tore free from her soul. The obsidian throne split down its center. One by one, the 7 alphas turned away from Adrien and knelt before Evelyn. The council clerk lifted the ancient crown. Will you restore the old monarchy, unite your claim with King Rowan's, or rule Emberfall in your own name? Evelyn looked at the crown. Then she looked at the packs waiting for her choice. She did not reach for it. Evelyn left the ancient crown resting on its velvet cushion. A murmur moved through the great hall. Some wolves mistook her refusal for hesitation. Adrien knew better. For 9 years, she had carried power without claiming its symbol. Now she would not accept another system that demanded one ruler stand above everyone else. I will not restore the throne that allowed this to happen, Evelyn said. Her voice carried to the farthest archway. The crown taught alphas that strength meant command. It taught Lunas that sacrifice was duty, and silence was loyalty. It turned mates into property, heirs into political assets, and frightened councils into hidden kings. Counselor Voss struggled against the guards holding him. You cannot dissolve 3 centuries of law. Evelyn looked at the broken obsidian throne. The original covenant is older than your laws. Nora Bennett placed the document before the 7 pack leaders. Each alpha read the clauses their histories had erased. Civilian authority shared equally, Luna consent required for succession, and no royal child subject to ownership by the state. One by one, the 7 leaders pressed their seals beneath Evelyn's proposed charter. Emberfall Kingdom ceased to exist before sunset. In its place stood the Mooncourt Commonwealth. Under its new laws, every pack would appoint 2 representatives, one responsible for defense and one responsible for civilian welfare. No alpha could remove a Luna without an independent trial. Rejected mates could claim sanctuary without becoming rogues, and no unborn heir could ever be declared property of a crown. The first judgment belonged to Gideon Voss. His rank, estates, and voting rights were stripped from him. His wealth would rebuild the healer clinics and border shelters he had allowed to fail. He was sentenced to life imprisonment in the royal fortress, where no alpha command could reach the guards assigned to him. Celeste stood before Evelyn without her jewels or white gloves. The blackened wound around her finger remained visible. You took everything from me, Celeste said. No, Evelyn replied. You traded everything for a title that never recognized you. Celeste's property was seized to compensate those harmed by the Moonbane network. She was confined to Silent Citadel and permanently barred from pack politics. She looked toward Adrien, perhaps expecting him to defend her. He did not. Adrien's punishment was announced last. He lost the title of Alpha King, the Royal Guard, and every privilege attached to the Vale Crown. He would retain conditional leadership over Ironcrest only after 3 years, rebuilding the eastern border settlements without Alpha Command. Then Nora placed another document before him. It concerned Evelyn's unborn child. Adrien stared at the page for a long time. By signing, he surrendered every automatic royal claim to the baby. Any future relationship would depend upon Evelyn's consent and his conduct. His hand shook around the pen. I would never hurt our child. Evelyn rested one hand over her stomach. You believed you would never hurt me. Adrien closed his eyes. Then he signed. It was the first thing he gave her without expecting forgiveness in return. 8 months later, Mooncourt's restored courtyard filled with spring sunlight. Evelyn stood beneath a flowering hawthorn tree with her daughter sleeping against her chest. Maeve Hart had her mother's dark hair and the faint silver crescent of Mooncourt near her shoulder. No crown touched Evelyn's head. She wore a simple moonstone clasp identifying her as Sovereign Luna, a title granted by the Commonwealth and limited by the same laws she had created. Adrien approached without guards. The months at the border had changed him. His hands were rougher, his face leaner, and the commanding certainty once surrounding him had faded into something quieter. He stopped several feet away. In his palm rested Helena Hart's moonstone pendant. I found it in the royal vault, he said. It should have been returned to you years ago. Evelyn accepted it. Adrien looked at Maeve but did not reach for her. She is beautiful. She is safe. The words were not cruel. They were a boundary. He nodded as if he finally understood the difference. I am sorry, he said. I know. There was no promise after that. No invitation back into her life. Adrien bowed to the woman he had once expected to kneel and walked away alone. Rowan waited near the garden gate. He wore no royal colors and carried no political treaty. The ring in his hand was plain silver, without the Nightcrest crest or Mooncourt crescent. "This offers no land, army, or alliance," he said. "Only the chance to know each other without a throne between us. And if my answer is no, then Nightcrest remains your ally, and I remain grateful you trusted me at all." Evelyn studied him. Rowan had never asked her to become smaller so he could feel powerful. He had stood behind her when the world expected him to stand in front. She took the ring and placed it on her right hand. "This is not a mate claim. No, it is not permission to rule beside me. I already have a kingdom to manage." A smile touched her lips. "Then we may begin." She walked toward Mooncourt with Maeve in her arms and Rowan beside her, not leading, not following. The Alpha King's true defeat had not been the loss of his throne. It was watching the woman he tried to replace choose a future in which he was no longer necessary. So, Evelyn's story has finally reached its quiet place. Are you still here with me? Then maybe this story touched something familiar. Being betrayed hurts. Being misunderstood hurts differently. And being forced to defend your own truth in front of people who already chose not to believe, you can make even the strongest person feel small. But Evelyn did not beg to be chosen again. She walked away while her heart was still breaking, because staying would have cost her something more valuable than love, her dignity. That does not mean she stopped feeling pain. It means she stopped allowing pain to make her decisions. There is a very practical kind of strength in that. You cannot control who lies about you, who replaces you, or who finally realizes your value after losing you. You can control whether you keep handing them the power to define your worth. And honestly, anyone who needs a public trial, a poisoned medical file, and a collapsing kingdom to notice your value may have missed several obvious clues. Evelyn did not win because Adrien regretted losing her. She won because she learned to choose herself without needing his permission. If that message means something to you, write "dignity" in the comments, and gently like, share, and subscribe for more stories about people who walked away from betrayal and found themselves waiting on the other side.